Hello, good morning, good afternoon, I think maybe almost. The High Court said this morning, made its ruling, and it was a clear ruling, including the most conservative judges. There is no more exemption for the ultra-Orthodox. This exemption of enlistment is illegal. The Ministry of Defense has to now produce enlistment letters to each one of these people. All of the go-arounds, all of the special protections are gone. The people who yell out, we will die before we enlist, those days are over. The age of discrimination is over. We are fighting on 7 fronts. Sadly, we do not have enough soldiers. There are reservists that their lives are collapsing because they can't shoulder this burden alone. The Torah, the Bible, is not a reason, a justification for exemption. From now, everybody who doesn't enlist will never get a single shekel from the state. Not for any yeshiva students. They won't get any more exemptions because there are no more exemptions. And I'm saying now to the government, from this stage, we in the opposition, we will all examine and see to make sure that you are not trying to get this money to them under the table and go around the budget. And I say to the Ministry of Finance and to the Ministry of Defense, don't find yourself facing indictments because you're trying to go around the High Court and to go against the law. The public of Israel will not continue to fund hundreds of thousands of people exemptions. Gallant, Edelstein, Barkat, Avi Dichter, Boaz Bismuth, even Bezalel Smotrich. This is your moment from this morning. Enlistment of the ultra-Orthodox is the law. If you do not follow the law, you are betraying the soldiers of the IDF. You are betraying the soldiers in the reservists. Haredis, ultra-Orthodox sector must enlist to the IDF. So that was that issue. And now for the subject at hand, the issue, the strategic difficulties of Israel and how to address them. The state of Israel at the moment has 7 strategic issues in the security state level, and they all have solutions, maybe not complete solutions, maybe not magic sort of solutions that solve everything, but there are things that we can do. And this is the only slide, by the way, that I'm going to show you, because first of all, we have to address Gaza. We have to decide what we want to happen there. What is the situation the day next? What's going to happen in Gaza? There's the issue of the hostages, of course. The state of Israel will never recover from October 7th if there is no deal to return the hostages. There's no Israeli contract that will be viable without our hostages being home. The next issue is Lebanon. The evacuation of our entire northern border, that was a terrible mistake that was born of panic. Now we have to find a way to bring these displaced people back home and give them a long-term solution. 4 is the issue of Iran and its proxies, of course, its nuclear program. And Iran have certainly a plan to eradicate Israel. It doesn't mean they'll be successful, but we do have to address it. Iran is moving ahead in its nuclear program in huge steps. Netanyahu is not managing to do anything to stop them. The next 5th issue is Hague, the International Court. And even if you don't like Netanyahu, and I do not like Netanyahu, you do not need to want that an Israeli prime minister be arrested for acts of war. The next issue is, of course, Israel's international status. And this is not just a problem of campuses in Columbia and Berkeley. We are collapsing in terms of our international status, in our relationship with the United States, in our alliances in Europe, complete collapse. And the 7th issue is Israel's economy. We are losing our competitive edge, and this has severe security ramifications. Israel's national security is funded at the end of the day from taxpayers, particularly the high-tech sector. And now AI, for example, is a big issue. Everybody knows that AI is the forefront of technology, and we are leading that. Now, with these 7 problems, in the last year, There's been a solution that's been consolidated. It's maybe not comprehensive. It may not seem so, but it is. And that's the Saudi-U.S. agreement. If you aren't familiar with the issues, it's not only an extension of the Abraham Accords. It really brings back American hegemony to the Middle East at the expense of the Chinese and Russians. It creates a security coalition and economic coalition from Azerbaijan all the way to Egypt, in which Israel is central to that axis. And even more importantly, that this deal touches on every one of the 7 problems I listed, because any kind of agreement in regards to Gaza, the day following the war, and the new coalition that should be established of the Emirates and the Saudis and the Americans, and let's say, and some maybe factors within the Palestinian Authority, should manage Gaza and not allow the Hamas to reemerge. This will bring an end to the war in Gaza, which will allow a deal for the hostages. We can bring back those who are alive. We can stop the combat in Gaza. That will lead to settling down the northern border, which will repel, at least temporarily, the Hezbollah from our northern border, but it will give us a respite in order to make new security arrangements on our north. Which brings me to my 4th point, a strategic alliance with the Saudis. This is a key point against Iraq. We've seen this on a micro scale on the day of on the 14th of April, where missiles and drones attacked us. But the Iranians have to understand that we could also have an attack coalition, and this will hurt them in Yemen and Syria and other sites. And this kind of alliance is also the foundation for the state efforts that we have against nuclear Iran. I mean, we always said that nuclear Iran is not only an Israeli problem, it's a worldwide problem. And this understanding has been eroded in recent years. Netanyahu has lost his ability to enlist the world facing the Iranian nuclear threat. So what we need is a concentrated state effort with new strategic partners, so that if there is a time to attack Iran, we are not alone, but we are at the forefront of the efforts, the vanguard, of course, including our American friends. The last point is Hague. If there is a deal with the Saudis, nobody's going to try and arrest an Israeli prime minister in the midst of a peace agreement with the Saudis. That won't happen, which will lead to the request of the general prosecutor that will bring about full despair. There's no idea or any kind of glimpse of hope that the government of Israel will make a positive move. Now, obviously, such a deal will make a dramatic shift in our international status, will bring us back our alliance with the U.S. and may be able to change perceptions. We had such a watershed point against the Abraham Accords and the Negev Forum. And finally is our economy, because we live in a networked world in which state alliances bring about economy. We'll have new partners, new investors, new markets. Israel was and remains a technological player, which is very intriguing for the world. We just need to extract ourselves from our current isolation, which is the product of this government's behavior. So 7 problems. I showed you 7 solutions, and 1 solution for all 7 problems. And this solution will also increase our internal resilience, our strength, our cohesiveness in Israel, to have a positive vision, something to look forward to against the background of catastrophes and rifts and societal division. But there's only one key obstacle here. One. And that obstacle is that if with the current government, this won't happen. There will be no agreement with the Saudis, with this government. Why? Because this government is incapable of saying the word Palestinian. It sounds infantile because it is infantile. It seems irresponsible because it is irresponsible. The most extremist factions in this government, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and others within the Likud as well, are not willing for any agreement, however vital it is, however beneficial it is. If anybody dares to speak the word Palestinian, the agreement with the Saudis will not happen if the state of Israel does not recognize that it has to say goodbye to the Palestinians. I'm not saying that we need to accept or agree to a Palestinian state in the immediate future. I don't think there's anybody, including the Palestinian Authority, that really believes they can immediately now establish an independent state entity. The Western world and also the Arab world are telling us, we understand your fears in Israel, but let's begin working together on the change. Let us begin working on education programs in the Palestinian Authority to create a transition. Let's build an effective mechanism against terrorism to make sure that the Hamas doesn't bring them down again. Let's check, at least cautiously over time, if there is a possibility of having Palestinian, leadership which is not corrupt, which is effective, which can manage their own affairs, 5.5 million Palestinians in Judea and Samaria and Gaza, without all of these efforts, without showing a real seriousness on the Palestinian side. No one expects Israel to accept the establishment of a Palestinian state if it just becomes another failing terror state. Everybody understands this. All we're being asked to do is that we say that if our conditions are met over time with clear milestones, we will accept the basic principle of separating from the Palestinians in 7 years, in 10 years, I don't know, whenever they show that they can meet those conditions. Now, I talked in the past often about two-state solution. I talked about this even in the UN as Prime Minister. I don't renege on that, but something has changed. After October 7, they have to prove it. If they want self-determination, they have to prove to us that it doesn't lead to more terrorism and more death. On the other hand, not allowing it to occur, to stop any possibility of any US-Saudi agreement, is to undermine our own interests. To say that all Palestinians are the same, they're all Hamas, that just strengthens the Hamas. Not saying that if all our conditions are met after a significant amount of time, we may agree for separation, for a two-state solution. That weakens us as a state and disillusions of any hope for a better day. It brings us down to decline, isolationism, extremism, and it dismantles our relationship with the liberal world. When the government of Israel does not understand its limitations, when this government says that it will never allow that they have to trust God in order to stop a multinational state, that's messianic ideas. No, if that's this government, then we have to look for a different government with a different vision. Immediately after was appointed Prime Minister, President Biden came to visit. We then signed at the time the Jerusalem Declaration, a historic moment, a state, security, economy agreement that was unprecedented between the US and Israel. From Jerusalem, the president then went to Jeddah, and there the Saudis said that they're opening the skies and they will allow Israeli flights across their territorial skies. And that was a moment of hope. That was our way of showing that we are laying the foundations for something that is supposed to be a much bigger deal that will change the Middle East, that will bring some kind of avenue, positive alternative to all of the problems that Israel faces. But then, of course, our government collapsed, and since then we've met one catastrophe after the next, and under the leadership of an extreme government. Some of the horrific damage of this government is stopping our diplomatic relationship and dialogue with the Saudis, and because that would have been and in contrast to them, I and my people, my team, have continued to work on this agreement with the President's staff and, of course, the National Security Council. But without delving into specifics, I can say that we can do it. We know how to do it. If we have a sane, not extremist, not messianic government, if we finally have a government that cares for Israel and its security, I and my team are organized, are willing, are be able to, within a very short time, to have a normalization agreement with the Saudis and through the Americans. We can do this. It can be done. We can reach such an agreement that will push forward our security needs and Israel's status, Israel's economy, an agreement that will create a positive change in all 7 of the strategic problems that Israel faces currently and that affect each and every one of us. The moment that this government is replaced, this will happen. Thank you. Thank you and have a great day and have a great lunch.